Hello friends, my name is Dr. Awdhesh Singh and I am an author. I had been into Indian Revenue Service Customs and Central Excise for 25 years and I took voluntary retirement last year. I am now focusing on writing and also helping the civil servant aspirants to qualify and score good marks in the civil services examination. And one of the very important component of the civil services examination is the personality test, which is also commonly known as interview. So today I am going to give you some tips as to how you can score top marks in the UPSC interview. You have to understand that when you are going to appear in the interview, then you must be very careful about what you speak. And you have to also understand that you are going to be selected for the top civil services in this country and you are going to start with the top position in the civil services. And that is why you have to develop a perspective. And when you are going to appear in the interview, the first thing and the most important thing you have to develop in your mind is that you must speak from the perspective of the civil servants. Friends, we are all a common citizen before we get selected into our civil services, and we generally have a lot of complaints against the politicians, against the bureaucrats and against the system as such, which we feel is not able to deliver. So as a citizen, we develop a very negative attitude about the civil servants and the civil services, and we tend to criticize them more rather than trying to understand them. And therefore, when you are appearing for the civil services interview, you have to understand that you have to talk not as a citizen but as a civil servant as to how you are going to solve the problem as a civil servant rather than how you are complaining against the problems of the country. So you have to understand this very important point, that you have to answer the question as if you are already a civil servant. If you want to answer like that, you should have to understand what is your powers, what are your limitations, and within that limitation how you can solve the problem. This is the first important point. The second important point is that if you want to really tell about as a civil servant, then you should understand what different civil services are. So you should have the knowledge of all the important civil services like IAS, IPS, IRS, IFS, and what they do, what are their powers, and this is all available in ample quantity in the websites and all that. You should have basic understanding of what they do, and that is because once you know them, then only you can answer this question confidently and convincingly. The important thing is that even though you may have a priority, you might have given, let us say, IAS as a first choice, IFS as a second choice, IPS as a third choice, but that is your individual choice. But as far as the government of India is concerned, all services are equal. And so you should understand that you should never compare a service. You should not say that this service I am choosing because this is a superior service or this is an inferior service. This sort of comparison you should avoid. Rather than that, you can give the positive side of choosing service which you have given as a first preference and the second preference and the third preference, like that. So this is very important, that because don't compare the different services, because all services have importance in this country and all services are equally important in the eyes of the government. One important question which is very often asked is why you have given X choice as the first choice or Y choice as the second choice, and so you should be mentally prepared to justify your choices, and this is you should be able to convincingly tell the interview board as to why a particular choice is given preference. The third important point which I want to tell you is that you should know something about the board members. You see, the interview board is headed by a UPSC member who is generally a person of eminence of the age of around 55 to say 65 years of age, coming from different backgrounds like academic, civil services, sometimes from defense forces, and sometimes from other civil services, and so their background is very, very important. You should know what their profession is, because the profession in which somebody is there for 20-25 years is definitely molding their behavior and creating biases on them. So you can know more about them by reading about them, reading about their writings, and so once you understand who the members are, then you can easily tailor-made your reply to suit them. Then you can also find out about what they are asking by checking up the people who have already given the interview, because every interview board generally tend to ask similar type of questions, and so you can check up what type of questions they are asking and you can better prepare for those questions. The fourth important point is that you should know almost everything about yourself. You can say, you can still show ignorance, or you may still not be aware of everything about other people, but at least about yourself, you should know everything. For example, you should know about your hobbies, your interests, the place where you live, the state where you live, the institute where you have studied, the branch you have studied. So for everything, or the job which you have undergone, the job if you have done any, all those things you should know about yourself, because these questions can be asked as to why, what was about the previous job, what was about your engineering education, why you have chosen civil services and not your medicine or not your engineering. So this is that you should have a very sound knowledge about your own profession. Then when we are sitting before the interview board expect candidates to be nationalist, a candidate to be idealist, but your nationalism and idealism should be realistic and rational. This is very important. You should not give a very highly hypothetical answers as if you are going to transform the society as a civil servant, which is actually which you can never do. You are basically going to play an important role, and you should understand that your answers has to be rational, because the people who are sitting to interview are very experienced people, and they will immediately know that your answers are superficial and that you are unaware of the reality. So this is the important thing, and you should give an impression that you are joining the civil services to take the challenges of life and transform the country. This is what is expected from the young people like you. Then important point is that interview board is like any other preparation. Just like you are spending so much of time for the written examination and for the prelims examination, mains examination, the same way you should also spend time for interview. And it is only by practice that you can make yourself perfect. So I will advise you that if you can join a mock interview class in your city or in a place like Delhi and all that, you can join the mock interview classes. That will be quite helpful to you for tackling the interview. You should also practice with your friends who are also trying for civil services or who are already selected in civil services and face the interview. So by this mock interview, you can really learn as to how to present yourself and how to face the interview board. You can also practice before the mirror and see whether you can convincingly speak before other people. The seventh important point is that you should be comfortable when you are interviewing. Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. Don't think that it's a life and death situation for you and that you have to score anyway. You try to be normal. You should dress appropriately on that day. It is better to dress formally and not go in a weird dress. Get dressed formally in the formal suit and in the formal pant, shirt and tie if you can wear, so that you are not at least feeling awkward because of your dress. Then when you are speaking before the interview board, you should speak slowly and confidently. Don't rush up the things, don't feel unrest there. Don't keep your legs moving, and sit quietly. Don't be restless, because that will show that you are nervous. Don't show nervousness there. Try to smile, and if the interview board asks you to take a tea or coffee, then accept that and take it. This is important to look very normal, because if you are uncomfortable, then you will not be able to answer your questions properly. The eighth important thing is that you should be very sensitive about the national and international issues. As a civil servant, we cannot be indifferent to what is going on in the country, what is going on in your state, what is going on internationally. A civil servant has to be sensitive about everything going on, and you must have a perspective about the US policy, about a terrorist incident, about monetary policy, about say demonetization. Everything you should have a perspective, what is the latest development. So when you are going for the interview, please read the morning paper, that is very important, and please see that whatever has happened in last week or in last month, you should have a good idea about what is happening, so that if some question is asked about that, you should be able to answer that very confidently. And the ninth and very important point is that you should be honest. As a civil servant, you are not expected to know everything. As a candidate, they don't expect that you will be able to answer every question they ask. So if you know something, please answer that question. If you don't know something, then please say that you don't know. I think that will be very well accepted by the interview board, because you are not expected to know everything. But be honest, don't try to bluff, don't try to lie, because if that is detected, then your one bad answer will actually counter the 10 good answers which you have already given. So be honest before the interview board, don't make guesses. And finally, I will advise you that you should be flexible in your approach. You should not take a hard stand on any issue. Let us say somebody asks you about reservation, somebody asks about demonetization, somebody asks you about GST, then you may have your personal opinion about that, you may accept it or you may reject it, but when you are facing the interview board, you should try to justify that, you should try to be flexible, you should try to understand that and explain both pros and cons, and then thereafter you can justify your position in that regard. So be flexible in your approach, don't take a hard line, this is very, very important. So I hope that if you follow these 10 rules which I have given in this particular video, then you should be able to score very good marks in the interview. So thank you very much for watching my video. Share your thoughts and share this video with your friends for wider circulation. Thank you very much.